Hey friends and family, welcome back again to Netcode-Hub channel. We've started a project under e-commerce and we've done already 2 videos. You are aware. If you are not, then kindly check the video description. I have it in there. If you are just watching this for the first time, we are building an e-commerce application and we are first building an API. So we are done with 2 videos up there. You can check the description for this. Now this is going to be the third and final video for the API, and the next video is going to talk about the building the UI, a simple UI to handle this. Okay, so this time around we're going to handle the CAT service. So let's see how we can implement CAT and also payment system, maybe something like that. All right, so let's see. Now when you go to your solution, you can see we have all these projects and we have the various projects being added: application, domain, infrastructure, and also the presentation. We are following clean architecture, and also we are being guided by the solid principles. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is let's see how we can create. Now I know handle CAT service is quite tricky. Normally in an API, what I do the most is I would like to handle my CAT by the UI, since I can implement local storage, session storage, and all other storages in the browser. I want to keep what the user is going to add to CAT. And if the user wants to make payment, that is where I need to call an API. Else, I want the API to relax and I'll be free from loading. So normally CAT service are going to be handled mostly by the UI. But when it comes to making payment, that is where we connect or we contact the server for the payment system, and also for final calculation of the product which has been selected or added to cart. So first of all, let's look at how we can create a payment method. Now in a payment method, currently I'm going to create only one, that is by using credit card, but you can actually add a lot. People normally use enums for this, but normally I do keep them in the database so that in the near future, if you want to update it, you can create a CRUD operation to handle that. If you want to change some of the payment system, you can do that easily. And maybe you can have a UI for that. Instead of having an enum and where it's going to be in the application, maybe you want to make it versatile so a user can update it, can create it, can delete it anytime that they do want. So let's have a look how to do it. Actually, this is what I'm doing in mine. But while there are a lot of use cases and scenarios, so based on your need, you can do something which is going to suit that. Now let's have a look at this. So let's first go in there and create a class, and maybe I'm going to call this as payment method, and I'm going to do that in the domain. So in the entities, another folder, and this folder is going to handle all about CAT, from checkout, from payment, everything. So let's add a class, and payment method. Now this payment method is going to handle 2 properties. It's going to have the name and maybe an ID. So with this payment system, I have the ID and the name. I think only 2 properties are okay. Maybe if you want to add date created or any extra information, you can go ahead and do it. So this key should come from data annotations. Let's go and create DB set for this. You go to the infrastructure, AppDB context, and that is where we're going to do our DB sets. So payment method. Now we don't want to perform CRUD for this. We want to only create this or see this whenever we apply migration. So we can copy this and paste this here, and let's see if we can see the payment method. So for ID, it's going to be GUID, and I'm going to make it as this is credit card. That is so. So I have only one payment. In case you want to add more, you see why I added this credit card? Okay, this should be here. Okay, I have this copied already, so I can go ahead and unclear this. Okay, so I have one. As soon as I update database, this is going to see table. Okay, great. Now, since the user is going to get this in the UI, we want to get this and display in our checkout page. When user want to check out, we need to have a service which can call an interface calling a repository to retrieve this from the database. Okay, because we have it in database, so we need to have a way of getting it. So let's go and create our interface for this. We're going to have only one property or one interface in there. And this is going to happen in the same application infrastructure. No, that's application, and in that we have an implementation or the interface in there. So this is our domain. This is what I'm talking about. This is our domain, and you can see we have our interfaces. And here, let me add a folder for organization, and this is going to be let's say, let me add everything to cart, then add an interface, which is an iPayment method, and now with this is going to be public, and I'm going to provide only one, that's an I enumerable, which is payment method. So get payment method, I would like to go for this. Now we need to implement this interface. So we need to go to the infrastructure and implement this. So in the infrastructure, this is our host. Infrastructure, we go to our repos, and in here, I'm going to also create one, which is going to be cart. Organization is a key. I want to add a class, which is going to be payment method repository. Now this should inherit from the interface that we created, iPayment method, whereby we implement this interface. And you know, since we're going to connect with a DB, we need to implement a DB set. That is our AppDB context, so we can have access to the table. Then quickly, just one line can make this work. That is all. So we want to get a list from the database, and I'll return that peacefully. So return as no tracking.toList. Okay, so cannot convert this. This is payment method, and that means we need to change it from the interface as well. Yes, we got it. So as we are done here, we go to, let's restart this before we forget. So in our dependency service container, we can put it down here, a copy of this. Then we can say iPayment method with payment repository. We are done. Let's go and create service. So in the application layer, implementation and interface, let's also add folder for carts, and let's add the new item as an interface. should be iPayment method service. Now this is going to return task of. Here we need to have get payment method. That is where we need our DTO. So quickly we go to our DTOs, and here we also going to add cat, add a class. We can go to the model and grab this, and here let's change this to public. Let's remove this, move that. Then we can add required. So we go back to the service and we can include the using statement here. Okay, let's implement this. Let me grab this. Then in our implementation, let's also add a class which is going to inherit from iPayment service. Let's implement this. So in here we need to inject our interface. So iPayment method payment method. Aside from that, let's inject our iMapper, then mapper. So once we add this, let's go and map it. So let's first get the payment method. Then we're gonna say that if methods.any, then you want to return empty array, else we're going to map it. Let's return mapper.map enumerable of get payment method. Then we pass in our methods. So we are mapping to this model. Now this should be enumerable so we need to go to our service, enumerable. Okay, so we have this. The next thing that we need to do here is we need to map this. So let's go to our mapping folder and map. So the T source there is coming from payment method, then mapping to get payment method. Now let's create a controller to expose the service. So we go to the host in our controllers folder, we add empty one, then we say payment controller. We can have an HTTP GET. So payment methods. Now we need to inject our service. And in that we can grab this. Yeah, so we have a simple controller to return or expose this to the outside world. So we're going to get it in case we do not have any method in it, any record. We want to return not found, but in case we do, then you know what's going to happen. Return OK with it. So let's go and create our payment service. Now this payment service is going to handle the Stripe payment service. So let's go and do that in the application. So as you can see from our details, applications, we have our services, and then there we have the interface, we have our cart. So let's add an interface to the cart. And we call this as iPayment service. Now this iPayment service is going to handle with let's say the total amount. We don't want to calculate this again, so we can say we're going to create a method to calculate the total amount of the item being sent from the client. But before that, we need to create our cart. So let's go to the details and our cart. Let's add another class, and maybe I can say this is process cart, because normally this is going to handle the cart coming in. Bear in mind that we're going to handle the cart system in the client, and it is only when user want to check out, that is where we call an API. So if user want to check out, we want to provide only the product ID and the quantity. That is all the server needs. It's going to go in there and I'll calculate it. So even if the client tampers the data, well, it is so safe because we return only the product ID and the quantity. That is all. So within this, we need to have two properties to handle. That is the product ID and the quantity. This is going to be for our cart, and this should be required, right? So we need to we can make this required, but that is okay. Since you're going to be using that in the UI, we need to be careful as well. Now, so let's go back to the interface. And now with this interface, we're going to have just task, which will return service response. Now this response, we're going to say pay. So we need to have a total amount. You can get this from the product list that is going to come in, but well, in case you have it, you can, for fast processing, we can have it processed separately and I'll return total amount. Then there's going to be our enumerable. Let's say this is our product. And now in our product, we say this is cart's product. And also our enumerable, we have process cart. Then we say this is cart. Now the reason why we haven't three properties or payload here is this is going to be the total amount of the selected product. Now this is going to handle the product details of the selected product, and this is going to handle the product itself. So this is going to be, you can see from cart we have the product ID. So if the user selected 3 products, we're going to have this product ID here, and this is going to contain those product details. and it's going to contain the amount. Okay, now let's go and implement this. So this should be an interface to payment service. Now the implementation of this should go to the infrastructure. So we go to the infrastructure, and in our services folder we want to also add one class which is going to be Stripe payment service. We need to first install stripe.net package. So I'm going to load mine since I do have the package already. So I'll go to product properties, so project. So from here, just install this package. If you don't know how to do it with dependencies, then go to manage and get packages, and I'm typing in there. But for me, I'm going to unload a project. And here I'm going to add it. So that is a package I need to install, stripe.net. So save that. When you are done, for me, I'm going to restore. And I'm back to life. Okay, great. So in the Stripe payment service, I can go in and now inherit from the interface. So with this, let's say there's a method. Now let's clear this. So we have the package installed. We need to create our line items first. So we have our line items over here. This is coming from stripe.checkout. Then we're going to look through the list that is coming in. So you see we are having products here. There's our products. So we can look through this. This process card contains only the product ID and the quantity. So when you look through the product, we can select the quantity that the user has selected or has submitted. We can get it from here by looping through and getting the product ID. You see? So all this is going to handle in the memory. So we see we are looping through the cart product. This is a product. When we loop through, we want to get the product quantity. So we make sure we search it from the cart. And now when we get the product, we want to go in there and add a line item. Since it's going to be list, we add a session line items, and now we specify our price data. So in our price data, we have our currency as US dollars. We have our product data, and that's going to be the product name and description. We can add image and a lot. And the unit price here is in a long format. So the item price, that is the product, it has a price times 100 gives you the unit amount. And now there's going to be the quantity as we make a search from here and grab the quantity. So the next thing that we're going to do here is we need to create an option for this after this is done. And this should come outside the looping. So we're going to say this is options equal to new session create option. And now with this session create option, we need to specify our payment method type. Where is it? So payment method type, it should be a list. And now with this list, we can specify USD. You can also add more. We have our line items, and that's equal to the line item that we have specified already. And we have the mode here. And we're going to say this mode is for payment. And the last two, if it is success, so successful URL, so maybe we can return we should go to the API or the UI. So we're going to create a UI, but for now, let's see HTTPS. We have a local host, then maybe with our port 7025. Let's say this is our port. Then we're going to have our payment success. Then we can have, let's make a duplicate of this, and this is going to be cancelled URL. We're going to say payment cancel. Okay, so now we are good. Now as we are done, let's create our service. And here we need to return the link, which will be viewed in the Blazor form. So let's say return new service response. Okay, now in payment method, since we are calling external service, we need to handle this with try catch. It's good that to use a local's error handling. So let's handle everything here with catch. Now this exception is not coming from us, so we can display this to the user because it's user friendly. So we can say that return service response. This is going to be false, and we're going to have ex.message. Yes, so we have our service also handled. In case we have a feature error to pop up, we can handle that easily. Great. So now that we have this, we need to go in and register this. So we can copy this, go to our service container. Now let's put it there. So there's iPayment service. Great. Now, so our service that we have created now, that's our payment. When everything works, the payment, the endpoint will be called and our return, which will be viewed in the UI for confirmation and processing of the payment through the Stripe. Now, when it is done, it's going to return to our link, success link that we specified. In this case, we're going to direct it to the UI. So the UI, we can go and check in case it works, everything is set well. Then what can we do? You want to maybe collect the data or the product details and get it into the database so we can keep it. And this time around, we need to create a service to also handle that. So let's go to our iCat interface, and from here, let's go to, this is going to be the interface, but before that, we need to create a model. Now this model, I'm going to make it as an archive because it's going to keep maybe products which has been ordered and paid for. So let's in my entities, domain entities, cat. Here, let me add another model here, and this will be an archive. Now in this model, I want to have maybe 5 properties. Let me just as public. And I want to have maybe an ID. There's a class, nothing. Okay, so I have an ID, product ID, quantity, user ID, and then the creator date. So I'm going to keep it. So this is going to handle the product ID, the quantity the user ordered, and now that specific user ID. So I want to keep that. So once I have this model, I can now go and create an interface for cart. So in the same interface under cart, let's create another interface, which is going to be iCart. And I can say maybe save checkout history. This could be blank, and which returns an integer. There is an interface. Take notes. And I'm going to pass in a list of checkout. Now this checkout each contains a user ID, the product ID. Let's go implement this in the infrastructure. So that is cart repository. So let's make this as public. And this should help from iCart. Let's implement the interface. And we need to just add range. And I'll return the response. So here should have DB context. Then we have our context. And we need to go in there and add DB set of this so we can have our checkout archives. So we can do that from our DB set. So go to the solution, and from your data app DB context, you can make a copy of this. And now say this is archive. That is all. When we return to our cart repo, everything should be okay. This should be an async, and we are good. So we are adding it. Now once you have this, it means you need to create a service whereby we can consume this and create our controller. So let's go and create our service. Now in the services, interfaces cart. Let's have an interface. So iCart service. Now this iCart service, let's go to the cart repo and I'll add it here. This should be public. And now with this, since we're having this, we don't need to use this here. We need to create DTO for that. So with this, we can go to definition, and now we don't need an ID, we need only this one, so we can copy. Then in the cart, in a DTO cart, we can have create archive. Let's have a class. And let's paste in our properties that we copied. So maybe we can also go and create a model for this, but well, I'll also like to use the default one. Since we are going to supply this ourselves, so we don't need any outside user to do it. So there's no need for us to add implementation. Maybe a validation, special validation. We can handle this ourselves. Okay, so now once you have this create archive, let's go to our interface, and let's add a create archive. So we can remove this one. Aside from save this, we need to have another one, which is going to be balance. Here should be service response, and this also should be same. And we say this is checkout. Now this checkout, we need to also create a checkout model. Now this checkout, what do we need? Let's go and create it. So let's add a class, rename it as checkout. Now this checkout, we need a payment. We need payment method ID because we have it already. So is that we need to get this from database, and also we need a process check cat, which returns or it contains the product ID and the quantity user is going to provide. So let's streamline this, and let's go back to our service. So we say this is checkout, and we will also need user ID. So user ID will enable us to keep it. So let's say when you have this checkout, let's pick definition. It's containing product payment method, and now this. Now process count contains product ID and our quantity. And are we adding, or we want to add user ID so we can know that this checkout belonging to the specific user. Okay. So let's go and implement the cat service. We go to the implementation, in application, and in here we already have the cat folder. So let's add a cat service. This should be a public, and it should inherit from iCat service, whereby we need to implement the interfaces. Now let's consume the cat service here. So iCat, so that is the interface. And maybe we need an mapper 2. Okay. So now save this. This coming with create. So let's map it. And we're gonna say mapper.map. And here's gonna be the destination, which is gonna come with archive. And the source here is going to be checkout, but well, we cannot have checkout because here checkout contains. Okay, so create archive, it's going to be checkout. Silent, we should go and change this. Save this with that. When you go to the cat service, yeah, this should be enumerable. And now this should be in here. So after mapping this, we want to say this is the results. And this is equal to await. We have our cat interface dot. We have our save, which returns a list of this, so we can pass in our map data. Then we can check. Can use lambda. No, that's a ternary. So results greater than 0. If yes, then return new service response of true. Maybe we can give So check out archived. Well, this message we are not going to, this is going to be for developer message, because we don't want to, this should happen background, right? Maybe we can, all that we need here, it is the true. Well, we can also add something. When we get there, we see how we can handle that. In case it isn't, then return false. Okay, so you want to return error occurred in saving. All right, now let's go and handle the checkout. We need to map it before we forget it. So let's go to our profile. Now we're mapping from our T source of create archive, and now it's going to destination of archive. Let's go back to our cart service. So we are done with this. Let's go and handle the checkout. So let's create a method, a parrot method, which can return us the product and also the total amount of this product. So we're going to select the product, and after that we're going to sum up the price of this product and our return based on the quantity that the user provided. Let's have a private class to handle that. So this is going to be private. Let's have a recommendation task, and this task should return first two states are enumerable of product. This is product, and aside from that, it should also return decimal. Okay, so that is a state that you want to return this. Now aside from that, you want to say let's get total amount, and now this total amount, it takes in the process cart. So that is an enumerable of process cart. And I'm going to say this is cart. So first of all, we want to check in case the cart does not contain any. We want to return empty and also 0 for the decimal. So instead of having this enumerable, we can make it in the form of simple like this. We can remove all this. So we can return this. That is when this cart is empty. But in case it isn't, what else can we do? We want to get the whole list of product. Now we can get this from the product interface. So we need to also add maybe generic and pass in the product. And we say this is product interface. We want to get the product interface at once from here. So the next step, we want to also handle that. Let's make sure we return array like that. So you can see we are getting products, and we call all this for our interface, and we get our product. In case you have none, we want to return now. But in case we do not, then we want to select the specific product that we have in our cart. We want to get a details from this product list. So we can use select and where. At the end, we make it a to list. So this should be the cart. So you can see we are getting select cart. We're going to select the product from first, which is equal to this, the product ID coming from this cart. So in case product is not null, then we want to return it to a list. Now once we have this, we want to get the total amount of the selected cart product. So as you can see from here, we have in this process cart. Now based on the IDs, you want to get them, and now you want to multiply the quantity by this cart price. So the next line would also make us achieve it. So we get it, we get the whole product from here. We make sure we select what is needful from our cart. Then aside from that, we want to sum up the quantity and our discard product. So you can see we are having this here. Discard quantity is coming from the discard quantity, and also you want to get it from the cart product. Now this cart product here is what we have the list, whereby the ID is equal to this. You want to take its price, so it's definitely going to multiply the price by the quantity the user has selected, and then get a total amount. And that is exactly what we're doing. So after we're done with that, it's going to sum everything from the total amount here. Then we want to return the cart product, and also there's a cart product, and also the total amount. So let's make sure this is nullable. Okay, so now we have our method. This is going to be a private method that we're doing to get the total and calculate it for us. Now we're going to use this in our checkout service. So in the carts, first of all, let's go and get the total amount and our product details. So you're going to say, let's implement tuple. So we're going to say this is product, first one, and so this is total amount. Now once you have this, it's going to be equal to, let's have an await, then get cat await. Then we can go and grab the name. So get cat total amount. Let's grab the name here, and we need to provide the list. We can get it from this checkout.cat. This should be an async. Okay, so now that we have this, we can go ahead and now get payment method. So we can say payment method, then now with this we need to also implement this payment service. So we can, so the next line, so I payment method service. That's a payment method. So let's grab that and then say payment method dot get payment method service dot get payment method. And since we're having only one method now, I can say that if checkout dot payment ID is equal to the method that we have payment, this payment method dot first or default, meaning picking the first one dot ID, that is where we want to. Else we want to return new service response, that will be false, and we can say something like invalid payment method. Okay, so here should be comma, right? All right. So then, in case it's equal to this, then we can proceed. So this is going to return string. So this is the link, and we can say it's equal to await. Now with this await, we're going to have a look at it as payment service. We don't have payment service, so let's I payment service. Then we have payment service. Then we can say this payment service dot pay. Now with pay, it takes in total amount. We have it already. So total amount. It takes in the cart product. So we can get it from this product. Then it takes in the cart list, so we can have checkout.cart. Checkout.cart. So this is going to return, let's see. Okay, this is going to return service response. So we can say return this. Okay, so you can say return this, or maybe we can even go in there and check in case it does contain the link, then we can proceed, else we can do something else. But well, this is also going to work. So maybe we can remove this from here. Now make it else. Now we need to also save this. We need to call this. But I'm sure we need to call this from the UI after the link has been sent in the view and our user has made a payment and we've returned to the page. We can then come in and call this and provide the archive here, the list, so we can get it. When we get there, we do it. Okay, so if you don't, for now we are not going to implement this, as you can see from here, but we're going to do it soon. Now let's go to our controller. So we go to our controller from here, which is going to be the product controller. So this is the app controller in the host. Let's create our cart. So let's say this is cart controller. So for now, when you check our cart service, we are not using the user ID. Let's streamline this. Later on, when there's a need, we come back and use it. Okay. So from our cart service 2, let's remove it from here. Now in our cart controller, we need to implement iCart service. And in here, we need to have our checkout. So here, let's have our post. Now this takes in checkout, which will come from the UI. And here, since we are using the default, we can check if model state is not valid. Then we want to maybe return that bad request. Then let's specify the model states. Else, what can we do? We want to call the service. So results got to await. Then we have our cart service, and in that we have cart service. You see, we have two endpoints here: save checkout history, right? And now this. Let's first go for the checkout and pass in this checkout. Now this checkout is going to return service response. So return if results dot success, then return OK with the results. Else, then it could be bad request with the same results. Now let's also handle the post for the other one, which will be called by the UI as soon as process is done. So let's handle HTTP posts, and this is going to be save checkout, and this should be a public async task. I action results and save checkouts. Now this should return create archive, and in that we can have results as cat service dot save cat history, which takes in enumerable of this archive. So I think this should be enumerable. This should be list. And let's grab and return. But I mean, this should return success, but we can go ahead and check it as well. So I wait. Then I think created or bad request, we can also return status code. Okay, so we have two endpoints in here. Now, in order for this to work, you cannot run this, make it work, because you need an API, a secret key from Stripe. So you need to go to Stripe account and then create account in there and then get a secret key. And in that, I have mine. So I'm going to show you how you can do it. But before that, let's go to our configuration. That is the app settings. And let's have a session. This session, let's call it as Stripe. And let's specify our secret key. So this is our secret key. You can get this key from the Stripe account. So let's see how we can get it. And once you have this, let's go to, so let's see how to register. Go to solution, and in here from your infrastructure, service container, let's put it here. So we can say that here it is Stripe. We can get Stripe from here because you have the package installed. Then we can have Stripe configuration. You see that? API key. Because we have an API key, API version, API key, API info, app info. You want to tackle this. It's equal to config. And we say that here we have our Stripe secret key. Just what you need. Very simple one. Okay, so let's see how we can get a key. So that is quite simple. You go to marketplace.stripe.com and make sure you sign in. Click on dashboard, and that is where you are. So this is a dashboard. You see we have a test mode activated. It's a testing purpose for developers. And here it is where we focus on get started with Stripe. So you can see for developers, can you do this? This is a publisher key. This one, I think, is there for identification. But we need a secret key. So just go in there and now grab this key. Okay, dashboard.stripe.com test dashboard. Grab that. So I have mine here. I'm going to grab it and paste it in here so you can we can run this and check it out. Okay. But before, we need to add migration. So let's go and rebuild this project. Then we're going to add migration. All right, so we go to package manager console and so add migration. Is it 10th or 4th or 5th? All right, so let's say update table. Whoa, this should I think this is wrong. We should make sure infrastructure selected. Do it again. Okay, so this is done. Now let's update database. All right, so there's already an object known as that. So it means we need to go in and normally for this we need to delete our database. Let me go and delete it for fresh start. That is this databases, and that is the e-commerce app. So let me get rid of this. Let me also get rid of my migration, and let me do it again. So add migration. I could say this is first. Then let me update it. Once this is done, we can go ahead and run this and check it out. So maybe this is what we need to do. We want to test. All right, so we in our payment system, we're going to test it when we get to the UI. All right, so don't worry, this is going to work, trust me, because this is going to give us a link, and on this link can be test in a UI because it's a page that we need to open. So let's see how to do that. Our next video is going to talk about how to create a simple UI to handle this. You could build a client from React, any other front end framework, but we're going to be using Blazor to build a simple UI to handle this e-commerce API. All right, so stay tuned for the next one, and I believe it's going to be enjoyable as this. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done that, because I have a lot of informative content for you. You can change the playlists and also the channel playlists and also courses. I have a lot of these prepared for you. That's great. All right, so catch up again. Take care.